All right, you language enthusiasts. The material that you sent over about Kumaoni has me totally hooked.
And,
It's not every day we get to explore a language spoken by over 2 million people.
right.
2 million?
Yeah.
That's like having the entire population of Chicago speaking Kumaoni. I'm ready to dive in. What's the lowdown on this language?
Well, it's mainly spoken in the Kumaon region of India, but you also find pockets of it in Nepal.
Okay, so picture this bustling markets in the foothills of the Himalayas families gathered around sharing stories, all in Kumaoni. What's the story behind this language? Where did it come from?
We were talking way back to the Kateri and Chan dynasties. These were powerful kingdoms, and Kumaoni was their official language.
Wow.
We're talking ancient inscriptions on stone and copper plates etched with Kumaoni script.
Okay.
It's like holding history in your hands.
Official language, ancient inscriptions, you can practically feel the weight of history on each word.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder how much of that history still echoes in the Kumaoni spoken today.
More than you might think. And while Kumaoni is currently spoken by a healthy number of people, it's actually on UNESCO's radar.
Oh, really?
It's not classified as endangered, but it needs some TLC to stay vibrant. Which got me thinking, what kind of threats does a language like this face in today's world?
That's a great question. It's easy to forget that languages are living things. They need the right environment to thrive.
Yeah.
So what's putting the squeeze on Kumaoni?
Well, one factor is migration. As people move to urban areas or other parts of India for work or education, they might use Kumaoni less frequently.
Right.
And often children growing up in those environments may not learn the language at all.
It's like a slow fade then.
Yeah.
The language starts to recede from daily life.
Mm-hmm.
It makes me wonder about those 2 million speakers we talked about. Are they all speaking the same Kumaoni, or are there variations?
You've hit upon a key point, dialects. Imagine a linguistic tapestry woven across the Kumaon region.
Okay.
There are several dialects, each with its own unique character. It's not as simple as drawing lines on a map, though.
Okay.
There's no official classification system,
Yeah.
which makes it even more fascinating to study.
Okay, now I need some examples.
Sure.
What's a word or phrase that sounds totally different depending on where you are in the Kumaon region? Give me a taste of this linguistic tapestry.
Let's take a simple word like then. In standard Kumaoni, you'd say fair, but venture into the Pithoragarh district and you'll hear tab,
Okay.
head south to Almora, and it transforms into ta.
Wow.
It's like a subtle code switching depending on your location.
That's amazing. It's like each town has its own secret handshake. But that actually reminds me of something
Yeah.
we've talked about where Kumaoni is spoken. But what about the language itself? What makes it unique to the ears?
Oh, it's definitely got its quirks. One thing that really struck me when I was researching this was the retroflex consonants.
Retroflex. Okay, I'm all ears. Break that down for me.
Basically, it involves your tongue doing acrobatics in your mouth.
Okay.
Take the P sound, for instance. In English, you touch your tongue behind your teeth.
Yeah.
But in Kumaoni, for the retroflexes, you curl your tongue back and flick it against the roof of your mouth.
Oh.
It gives the sound this whole other dimension.
Whoa, I'm trying that right now, and I don't think my tongue is flexible enough. It makes you realize how much we take for granted the way we form sounds.
Absolutely. And here's where it gets even more interesting. Kumaoni actually borrows from a language that's no longer spoken, the Khasas language.
Okay, now that's cool. A ghost language.
Yeah.
So how do we see its influence in Kumaoni today?
One example is the verb to be, the way it changes form in Kumaoni depending on the subject, and tense.
Right.
Shows a connection to languages like Kashmiri and Rajasthani, which are believed to be related to the Khasas language.
Wow.
It's like this linguistic puzzle piecing together the history of languages through their grammar.
That's incredible. It's like each word holds a hidden story waiting to be uncovered. And speaking of uncovering,
Yeah.
I have to ask about these notes you have on verb conjugation. It looks like a cheat sheet for speaking Kumaoni.
It's our way of giving you a peek under the hood. Take a look at the verb to write. In Kumaoni, it's leknu. Now look how the ending of the verb changes depending on who's doing the writing.
My lectu, tu lecto, su leccha.
See how it morphs.
Okay, this is way cooler than any language textbook I ever had. I'm starting to see how those endings build the sentences.
Right.
So once you've got your verbs down, what about some essential Kumaoni phrases?
Well, you can't go wrong with Jai Dev, a traditional greeting that's both respectful and warm.
Okay.
It's like saying hello with a touch of reverence.
I love that. Jai Dev. All right, I'm adding that to my repertoire. But I gotta say, I'm also a sucker for those everyday phrases that give you a glimpse into a culture anything like that in Kumaoni.
How about Ber Gyava Jaya? It means come home early. It's a phrase that speaks to the close-knit nature of Kumaoni families, the importance of gathering together. You can almost hear a loving grandparent saying those words.
Okay, that's heartwarming. Berry Gavajaya. I'm already picturing myself using that on my next visit. But those phrases make me think, what about Kumaoni literature? Are there famous authors who've captured the soul of Kumaon in their writing?
Absolutely. Kumaoni boasts a rich literary history. Two giants in the field are Lokratna Pant and Gauri Duck Pant.
Oh, okay.
Their works have not only preserved the beauty of the language, but also put Kumaoni literature on the map.
Wow, they sound like literary rock stars.
Yeah.
It really makes you appreciate how language isn't just about communicating information. It's about weaving stories, sharing experiences, and keeping traditions alive, which reminds me, you mentioned earlier that Kumaoni pops up in Nepal as well, right?
Exactly. And it's not just about spoken words. Kumaoni finds its voice in other forms of media, too.
Like what?
We're talking film music, even radio.
Okay, hold on. Kumaoni on the big screen. Now, that's something I have to see. Tell me everything.
Well, there's a film called Mega R, considered the first Kumaoni film. It was a huge deal, paving the way for other filmmakers to tell stories in their native tongue. And then there's Terry San, a fascinating project that blends Kumaoni and Garhwali, another language spoken in the region.
A bilingual film. That's incredible. It's like this beautiful collision of cultures and languages all playing out on screen.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder about the creative process, the challenges of blending two languages seamlessly into a single story.
You've hit upon something really fascinating there. Imagine the filmmakers juggling dialogue, subtitles, even the musical score, all while ensuring that both languages are given equal weight and respect.
Wow.
It's a testament to the power of film to bridge cultural divides and celebrate linguistic diversity.
Absolutely. I'm adding those films to my watch list as we speak. But speaking of artistic expression, my ears are always attuned to music.
Sure.
What's the sound of Kumaoni? Paint me a picture.
If soulful melodies and rhythmic beats are your thing, then you're in for a treat. Kumaoni folk music is deeply rooted in tradition and emotion. You've got everything from the ceremonial chants of mandals to the martial tunes of panwaras.
Okay. Well, I can already hear the drums and the chanting, or we're talking about instruments that are unique to the region as well. Anything I wouldn't find in a typical orchestra.
Oh, absolutely. Get ready for the ransinga, a stringed instrument that adds a haunting melody to Kumaoni tunes.
Okay.
And then there's the masak baja picture, a percussion instrument with a raw, earthy sound that'll get your toes tapping. The combination of these instruments creates a soundscape that's both familiar and otherworldly.
Wow.
It's music that transports you.
I'm ready to book a flight to Kumaon and experience that firsthand. Are there any legendary Kumaoni musicians I should add to my playlist? Voices that have become synonymous with the soul of Kumaon.
When it comes to legendary Kumaoni singers, Mohan Upreti is a name you absolutely need to know.
Okay.
His music resonated with people from all walks of life. He had this incredible ability to capture the essence of Kumaoni life, the joys, the sorrows, the everyday experiences, and weave them into his songs.
Okay, you sold me. Mohan Upreti is going straight to the top of my list. Is there a particular song of his that you'd recommend as a starting point?
You absolutely have to listen to Bidu Paco Baromasa. It's considered one of his most iconic songs, and it perfectly encapsulates the spirit of Kumaoni music, a blend of tradition, emotion, and a touch of melancholy.
Bedu Paco Baromasa. It rolls right off the tongue. And now I'm dying to know the story behind the song. What is it about?
It's a tale of love longing and the bittersweet passage of time.
Wow.
It's a reminder that even in the face of hardship and change, the human spirit endures. It's a powerful message made even more potent by the soulful melody and Upreti's incredible vocals.
Wow, that just gave me goosebumps. It's amazing how music can transcend language barriers and connect us on such a deep level.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder, what would Mohan Upreti think of the efforts to preserve Kumaoni today?
That's a fascinating question. It makes you think about legacy, doesn't it?
Yeah.
What artists hope to pass on to future generations? And speaking of passing on knowledge and traditions, we have to talk about radio.
Okay, Kumaoni on the airwaves. Tell me they have a radio station dedicated to the language.
You bet they do. It's called Kumaon Vani, a community radio station that's become a lifeline for Kumaoni speakers, especially in remote areas.
That's incredible. A whole community tuning in to hear their language, their stories, their music. What kind of impact does a radio station like that have, especially in today's digital age?
It's huge. You have to remember that for many people in those communities, radio is more than just entertainment. It's a source of information, a way to stay connected with the outside world, and a powerful tool for promoting Kumaoni language and culture. It's about keeping those traditions alive and thriving.
It's like this little radio station is holding a community together, reminding them of their shared heritage. It makes you wonder what else is being done to support Kumaoni and ensure its future.
Well, that brings us to a topic that's close to the hearts of many Kumaoni speakers, the fight for official recognition.
Okay, things are about to get interesting. This is where language meets politics.
Uh-huh.
So tell me, what's the situation with Kumaoni and its official status?
Well, currently Kumaoni isn't recognized as one of India's official languages. However, there's a growing movement to change that.
Okay, I'm on the edge of my seat. Tell me more about this movement. What would it mean for Kumaoni if it were to gain official recognition?
Imagine this Kumaoni being taught in schools, used in government documents, even featured on national television.
Wow, it would be a complete game changer. It would transform how Kumaoni is perceived and valued, not just within the Kumaon region, but throughout India.
Absolutely. It's about giving Kumaoni the recognition it deserves and ensuring its survival for generations to come.
I'm already feeling inspired. But this whole discussion has me thinking, what else does the future hold for Kumaoni? What are the challenges and opportunities that lie ahead for this fascinating language?
That's a question we'll dive into right after a quick break.
Stick around, folks, because we're about to uncover the future of Kumaoni. All right, we're back and ready to unpack the future of Kumaoni.
Okay.
No pressure or anything.
Well, predicting the future of a language is a bit like predicting the weather. There are so many factors at play.
True. But that's what makes it so intriguing, right?
Yeah.
So where do we even begin?
One major factor we have to consider is technology.
Okay.
It's a double-edged sword for languages.
Hmm.
On the one hand, it creates amazing opportunities for connection and learning.
Right.
Think online communities, language learning apps, even just the ability to easily access Kumaoni books and films online.
Mm-hmm.
These are incredible tools for language preservation and revitalization.
You're right, technology can break down geographical barriers and create a virtual space for languages to thrive.
Yeah.
It's like a digital lifeline, especially for languages spoken by smaller communities. But you said it's a double-edged sword. What's the downside?
Well, the dominance of certain languages online,
Right.
like English, for example,
Yeah.
can make it harder for other languages to compete for attention. It's like a crowded marketplace where some languages have much louder voices than others.
That makes sense. It's all about visibility, isn't it?
Yeah.
If a language isn't represented online, it's easy to assume it's not relevant or even thriving. So how does Kumaoni navigate this digital landscape?
That's a key question. While Kumaoni might not have the same digital footprint as some of the more widely spoken languages,
Right.
there are definitely people working hard to change that.
Okay.
There are online dictionaries, language learning resources, and even social media groups dedicated to promoting Kumaoni.
Mm-hmm.
It's a testament to the passion and dedication of the community.
That's encouraging. Because it can't just be about preserving the past, right?
Right.
Languages need to adapt and find their place in the digital age to truly survive in the long run. What are some other challenges facing Kumaoni aside from the digital divide?
We touched upon it earlier, migration.
Right,
It's a natural part of life,
right.
but it can have a profound impact on languages.
Yeah.
As Kumaoni speakers move to urban areas or other parts of India for work or education,
Right.
they often encounter environments where other languages like Hindi are more prevalent.
So what happens to Kumaoni in those situations? Does it blend in, get pushed aside, or find a way to coexist?
It's a fascinating dance, really.
Okay.
Sometimes Kumaoni gets relegated to the home, spoken only within the family. Other times, it leads to a blending of languages, with Kumaoni speakers incorporating words and phrases from the dominant language.
Right.
And sometimes it sparks a renewed sense of cultural pride as people strive to hold on to their linguistic heritage in a new environment.
You're right, it's a dance. A complex mix of adaptation, assimilation, and resistance. It makes you wonder, is there an ideal scenario?
Yeah.
Is it about keeping Kumaoni pure and unchanged, or is it more about allowing it to evolve and adapt to these new contexts?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
And there's no easy answer, but I think what's most important is that the speakers of Kumaoni,
Right.
the people whose language it is,
Yeah.
are the ones who ultimately decide its fate. They're the ones who will shape its future.
That's a great point. It's about empowerment, isn't it? Giving communities the tools and resources they need to make their own decisions about how their language is used, taught, and preserved. So aside from the efforts we've already discussed, like the community radio station and online initiatives,
Right.
what else is being done to support Kumaoni?
One exciting development is the growing movement to incorporate Kumaoni language instruction in schools,
Okay.
not just as a subject, but as a medium of instruction itself.
Yeah. So teaching math, science, history, all in Kumaoni. Now, that's what I call immersive learning.
Exactly. It's a way to make the language relevant to younger generations, to show them that Kumaoni isn't just something they speak at home with their grandparents,
Right.
but a language they can use to learn about the world around them.
It's about planting those seeds early on, fostering a sense of pride in their linguistic heritage.
Mm.
Are there any other initiatives that have caught your eye?
There are some really cool things happening in the realm of cultural preservation.
Okay.
Researchers and community members are working together to document traditional Kumaoni folktales, songs, rituals, even everyday conversations.
Yeah. It's like they're creating a linguistic time capsule.
Precisely. These recordings are incredibly valuable, not just for future generations of Kumaoni speakers, but also for linguists and anthropologists who want to study the evolution of language and culture.
Right.
It's a way to ensure that these traditions aren't lost to time.
It makes you realize that language revitalization isn't just about words on a page, it's about keeping those intangible things alive.
Yeah.
The stories, the music, the spirit of a community. It's about celebrating what makes Kumaoni unique.
Exactly. It's about acknowledging that languages are more than just tools for communication. They're vessels of culture, history, and identity.
Beautifully said. And speaking of identity, I'm curious about how Kumaoni interacts with other languages in the region. We talked about that bilingual film earlier.
Yeah.
Are there other languages that Kumaoni rubs shoulders with?
Oh, absolutely. It's a melting pot of linguistic diversity in that part of the world.
Right.
Kumaoni exists alongside languages like Hindi, Nepali, Punjabi, even Tibetan. It's a constant exchange of words, phrases, even grammatical structures.
So Kumaoni is like a sponge, soaking up influences from its neighbors. Does that mean the language is constantly changing?
Exactly. It's a testament to the fluidity of language, its ability to adapt and evolve in response to its surroundings.
Wow.
For example, you might find Hindi loanwords in Kumaoni, or even subtle shifts in pronunciation influenced by surrounding languages.
It's like a linguistic dance, isn't it?
Uh-huh.
With Kumaoni finding its rhythm amidst a symphony of other languages, what I'm hearing is that Kumaoni's future is far from certain, but it's also full of possibility.
Exactly. It's a story that's still being written,
Right.
and it's a story that involves all of us.
That's right.
Whether we're language enthusiasts, policymakers, or simply curious listeners,
Yeah,
we all have a role to play in supporting linguistic diversity.
absolutely. But before we get too ahead of ourselves, we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive. I think it's time to bring it all together and reflect on what we've learned about the incredible Kumaoni language.
Let's do it.
Okay, as we wrap up our Kumaoni deep dive, I have to say this has been really eye-opening.
Yeah.
It's amazing how much there is to learn about a language, even when you've never heard before this episode.
It's like we've only just scratched the surface.
Exactly. But we've covered so much ground: history, dialect, sounds, grammar, literature, music, film, radio, technology, migration, official recognition.
Right.
Whew, I'm exhausted just listing it all.
It's a testament to how multifaceted languages are. They're not just these static systems. They're constantly evolving.
Right.
Shaped by the people who use them, the places they're spoken, the technologies they encounter. It's fascinating.
It really is, but with all this swirling around in my brain, I have to ask the big question. What's next for Kumaoni?
Ah, the million-dollar question.
Uh-huh.
If I had a crystal ball, I'd tell you. But as we've discussed, the future of a language is never guaranteed.
Right.
It's a continuous process, a collaboration between those who speak it, those who are learning it, those who are working to preserve it.
So what you're saying is it's not a spectator sport.
Exactly. And the good news is you don't have to be a linguist or live in the Kumon region to make a difference.
Okay, I'm all ears. What can our listeners do even if they're just starting to learn about Kumaoni?
Well, it can be as simple as seeking out Kumaoni music online.
Oh.
Maybe watching one of those films we talked about.
Right.
Or if you're feeling adventurous, try learning a few basic phrases.
Mm-hmm.
Even just being aware of the language, understanding the challenges it faces, and talking about it with others, those are all valuable contributions.
You know what strikes me is the ripple effect. Even small actions like sharing a song with a friend or posting about Kumaoni on social media can help raise awareness and create a buzz.
Absolutely. It's about keeping the conversation going, reminding ourselves that linguistic diversity is something to be celebrated and protected.
Because when a language disappears, it's not just words that are lost.
Right.
It's an entire way of seeing the world, right?
Precisely. Each language offers a unique perspective, a different lens through which to understand the human experience.
It's like we're all holding pieces of a giant puzzle, and when one piece is missing, the picture is incomplete.
What a beautiful way to put it.
Well, I think that's a perfect note to end on, don't you? The
Yeah.
image of all of us around the world working together to preserve these incredible languages, these pieces of our shared human story.
Absolutely.
So to our listeners, thank you for joining us on this incredible deep dive into the world of Kumaoni. We hope you've learned something new, felt a spark of curiosity, and maybe even been inspired to embark on your own linguistic adventure. Until next time, keep those ears perked and those minds open to the amazing diversity of language all around us.